Hello and welcome back to another episode of Kerbol Conquest. In this episode of Kerbol Conquest, we will be doing Eve stuff. This rocket is for Gilly because Gilly is in orbit of Eve. And we're doing Eve stuff. The reason why we're going to Eve is because there's a ton of science around Eve, and it's the easiest planet to go to if you're not trying to land on it, because it's closer to Kerbin than Duna, I think. Anyway, this is the booster stage that I'm trying to recover. Um, yeah, it's got no probe core, but the parachutes auto deploy. Sadly, I was unable to recover the top tank thingy. Anyway, no. This this is how you get a transfer window to Eve. You just time warp until Eve is 54 degrees behind Kerbin. Since I'm not really good at talking about what's going around, what's happening on screen, I guess the footage talks for itself. Anyway, Eve is purple. Good for it. Gilly is the smallest celestial body in all of Kerbal Space Program, I believe. I believe it's got like 0.05 meters per second of gravity, of acceleration due to gravity at sea level. Wait, 0.05 meters per second squared of acceleration. Because acceleration is measured in meters per second squared, not meters per second. Because meters per second squared is just another way of saying meters per second per second. Yeah, that's right. Because science is cool. Don't drop out of school. It's good for you. I should probably say why that happens. Anyway, acceleration is measured in meters per second squared because because when you're accelerating, because meters per second is how many meters you go in 1 second, and meters per second is how many meters per second faster you go every second. If that makes any sense whatsoever. So anyway, the way that I like to get to Gilly is the same way I do a rendezvous. And if you don't know how to rendezvous, then you probably shouldn't be going to Gilly. The reason why I do that is because it's really hard to get a Homan transferred to Gilly because it's so tiny. It's like 20 or 30 times smaller than Minimus, I think. So that's like maybe more. It might be. I don't know. If you really want to know how much smaller Gilly is than Minimus, you could look at the Kerbal Space Program Wikipedia page. Because that's where you find out about things in Kerbal Space Program. Because the in-game tutorial sucks. Well, actually, I don't know, because I've never actually done the in-game tutorial. But I've heard people say that it sucks. So that's probably true. Because I never do tutorials in games that I play. I just try playing, and then I'll if I find something that I think I should be able to do, but I don't know how to do, I'll just Google how to do that, because I find that that's like much faster and more interesting than doing the in-game tutorial, because they're often bad. Which interesting, I guess. Wait, that's something that I don't understand. Like, the tutorials teach you how to play, but they're not interesting. I feel like games should just have better tutorials. That's something that all games should have. Well, what should Kerbal Space Program have to make it better? I don't know. Should it have a better tutorial system? Even if Kerbal Space Program had a better tutorial system, I probably wouldn't use it. But somebody might. I think Kerbal Space Program should have better parts. I feel like there's nothing that Kerbal Space Program 2 isn't adding that Kerbal Space Program needs. Because Kerbal Space Program 2 is adding the multiplayer, which is something that everyone has wanted. I guess maybe like if Kerbal Alarm Clock, that mod was part of the game, and you didn't have to download an extra mod, that would make it easier. Shoot, did that same clip just play twice? I feel like that clip just played twice. I'm talking about the video right now. I think that Gillylander just did the same thing twice, which shouldn't happen. Well, anyway, if you've noticed any weird cuts during this Gilly landing, that's because I probably loaded a quick save. Because Gilly is really hard to crash land on, but it's super easy to like accidentally just escape Gilly because you burn your engines for too long. Especially when you're like not paying attention. I don't know. And I just completely failed to talk about everything that was on screen. Well, Bob did science experiments. That's what happened on screen, basically. This is Bob deploying the deployable science. Good for him. I guess. I used Bob to deploy the science because scientists get more science from deployed science, and I didn't have an engineer to deploy the solar panels, which would have gotten me more electricity from them. Anyway, that deployed science ended up doing nothing because I didn't have the deployable communications disk unlocked. But it looks cool, I guess. Now I guess I should talk about that skip that happened on screen a while ago. I've been having like problems with that because the previous 2 exports that I did of this video had some issues because I was trying to improve the quality, and I guess my video editor just didn't want the quality to be improved. So when I exported a video at a higher quality, it wouldn't export parts of the video that it was supposed to, and it would export part of the videos that weren't part of it. So like I exported this same video and it like never showed the Gilly landing, but then at the same time it also showed me making the maneuver nodes to do everything, even though I always cut out me making maneuver nodes. I don't know why I cut out me making maneuver nodes. I mean, people might want to see that. Oh shoot, I didn't cut out that maneuver node. I guess that's one that I didn't cut out. Unless I did and my video editor just failed. It could have happened. I don't know. I don't even know anymore. See how that like maneuver node to escape Eve orbit just like randomly appeared? That's because I edited it out. Whoa, cool. After Bob and... Wait, I probably shouldn't talk about the next mission that I'm doing until after this one is complete. Random things to talk about. Yeah. So now that we're returning to Kerbin, Bill and Bob. Wait, no, it's not Bill and Bob. It's Valentina and Bob. I think it's kind of cool that there's a Bob Kerman because I believe one of the astronauts that went to the ISS recently was like Bob Hurley or something, and that's like almost Bob Kerman, just with a slightly different last name. Well, a very different last name, actually. I don't really pay attention to astronaut stuff in real life because I think astronauts are kind of stupid. Because I feel like they're just like along for the ride and they don't actually do anything. I know that's not a very common opinion that people have, But like the Falcon 9 is basically completely automated. And then you put like astronauts on it. I guess it kind of makes sense because the astronauts are the payload because they're going to the International Space Station to like do stuff there. But during the actual trip to the International Space Station, I feel like they get more credit than they actually deserve because the entire trip they're basically just sitting there doing nothing. It's like a road trip. I feel like anyone could sit in a capsule doing nothing. This booster, I actually managed to recover it, the entire thing. I know I didn't show that recovery, but what happens when you land these boosters in water is that they fall over, and then their parachutes can't catch them from falling over. And then when they hit the water for the second time, they crash. But I figured out that you could recover the boosters before they started falling over, and then you'd be fine, which I guess is kind of interesting to know. In that shot where you just saw the thingy, my payload, you might notice that there's still fairing around it, and that's because I thought that the fairing would protect the payload during re-entry, because I don't have an inflatable heat shield unlocked yet. So it was like the fairing could protect it when it enters Eve atmosphere, which I guess wouldn't be called re-entry because it's the first time, and re-entry is all about, because re means second time doing something. It's also a meme, a pretty dead meme, so I probably shouldn't say re. But you see there, I took off that fairing because this wasn't my first attempt at Eve entry, and it failed with the fairing because the fairing would explode and the heat shield was attached to the base of the fairing, so then the heat shield would fall off and everything would explode, which is kind of bad, I guess. Well, like, it's kind of my fault for including a fairing in a craft that didn't need a fairing. But yeah, this lander, I wanted to land on ground, not Ethereum seas or whatever these are called, because this has a seismic sensor on it, and you can't use a seismic sensor in water, which is interesting. And I think this video is almost over. It's got like 6 seconds until the end screen shows, but I just need to keep talking. And anyway, this video is over now. Have a nice day, and don't die.